Hey guys, Lord Naren White here, the Holy Ghost, the one true God. Back with you with the next video in my Line of God's Daily Diary series. As usual, before I discuss what I have achieved since yesterday's Daily Diary video, I want to go ahead and read you a chapter from the Bible. Today I will be continuing with 2 Chronicles, chapter 12. And it came to pass, when Rehoboam had established the kingdom and had strengthened himself, he forsook the law of the Lord, and all Israel with him. And it came to pass that in the 5th year of King Rehoboam, Shishak, king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem, because they had transgressed against the Lord, with 1,200 chariots and 70,000 horsemen, and the people were without number that came with him out of Egypt, the Lubims, the Sukkims, and the Ethiopians. And he took the fenced cities which pertained to Judah, and came to Jerusalem. Then came Shemaiah the prophet to Rehoboam, and to the princes of Judah, that were gathered together to Jerusalem because of Shishak, and said unto them, Thus saith the Lord, Ye have forsaken me, and therefore have I also left you in the hand of Shishak. Whereupon the princes of Israel and the king humbled themselves, and they said, The Lord is righteous. And when the Lord saw that they humbled themselves, the word of the Lord came to Shemaiah, saying, They have humbled themselves, therefore I will not destroy them. But I will grant them some deliverance, and my wrath shall not be poured out upon Jerusalem by the hand of Shishak. Nevertheless they shall be his servants, that they may know my service, and the service of the kingdoms of the countries. So Shishak king of Egypt came up against Jerusalem, and took away the treasures of the house of the Lord, and the treasures of the king's house he took all. He carried away also the shields of gold which Solomon had made. Instead of which King Rehoboam made shields of brass, and committed them to the hands of the chief of the guard, and kept the entrance of the king's house. And when the king entered into the house of the Lord, the guard came and fetched them, and brought them again into the guard chamber. And when he humbled himself, the wrath of the Lord turned from him, that he would not destroy them altogether, and also in Judah things went well. So King Rehoboam strengthened himself in Jerusalem and reigned, for Rehoboam was 41 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city which the Lord had chosen out of all the tribes of Israel, to put his name there. And his mother's name was Naamah, an Ammonitess. And he did evil, because he prepared not his heart to seek the Lord. Now the acts of Rehoboam, first and last, are they not written in the book of Shemaiah the prophet, and of Iddo the seer concerning genealogies? And there were wars between Rehoboam and Jeroboam continually. And Rehoboam slept with his fathers, and was buried in the city of David, and Abijah his son reigned in his stead. The word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. So, what I think is super great here is this. Well, I won't say super great. What was very fascinating about this? Well, we'll talk about that. That's a different thing, which is awesome. And of course, unfortunately, we get these words here in 2 Chronicles 12:14, which I mentioned. This idea of Rehoboam ultimately is not viewed as a good king. He's viewed as a bad king. It says here, and he did evil because he prepared not his heart to seek the Lord. And how straightforward that is. That fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So, with that, I want to go ahead and say this, which is that there's a show that airs at this time. I don't know how big this show will be like 1,000 years from now. It's very hard to predict things that are 1,000 years from now. Anything that I think that, like, of those predictions, that definitely will be influenced by God in terms of his foresight and things like that. So yeah, that is super duper powerful, because he of course can show me things. So the glory is to him. It's this idea like this. I have no clue how big this show will be, but in this time it's very big. The show is based off of a series, A Song of Ice and Fire, written by George R. Martin, who was a great author in this time. He's still alive as of this recording. It's that this idea of the show is called Game of Thrones, and it has an initial show. I think it's 7 or 8 seasons. Don't quote me. Very good show. One of the best shows I've ever seen. It has another show called House of the Dragon, and another show as well now called A Night of the Seven Kingdoms. And it stars different people of different times in this fictional Game of Thrones verse created by George R. R. Martin, and the different, and people direct and act in these series, and it's made by HBO. And the reason I mention this is because of the specific show House of the Dragon. In this show, in this series, there's a group of people called Targaryens who are known for two things. One, their ability to control dragons by way of their blood. They have like basically like a property that allows them to have ability to bond with dragons, as well as they're also known for their golden hair, and that is one of the traits of being a like Targaryen is like their silver hair, etc. And so the idea being that silver, gold, and I'm not sure, but that's how the Targaryens are. That's one of the traits that is often associated with being a Targaryen. And the idea is like this. The initial group of Targaryens was a man called Aegon Targaryen and his sisters Rhaenys and Visenya. And they came from what is the land in the eastern part of this universe, and they flew over there, I believe, don't quote me, after the doom of Valyria. So these people are Valyrian descent, and they fly their dragons over to Westeros, which is a completely different continent, and they conquer Westeros, except for a place called Dorne. Don't focus on it, I'm just saying the truth. So they essentially conquer Westeros, and with the power of their dragons. And the idea being that, of course, what happens is they are so powerful. How are they ultimately undone? Is they fight each other. And that's exactly what I thought of with this whole event here. That the initial king, Aegon, I thought of David, is a warrior king who's very strong. And he goes and conquers everything around him. And he installs himself as the king. And, so that's Aegon's legacy. And over time, it diminishes. And unfortunately, in the House of the Dragon, there's a Targaryen civil war between two different groups of Targaryens, where many of the Targaryens and, of course, their very powerful dragons die. Now, I don't want to get into the specifics so much of this comparison because it's not necessarily what I'm trying to prove or anything like that. I'm not trying to make a comparison. It's that this idea that everything between Rehoboam and Jeroboam is sad. It's sad. It's not supposed to be a good thing to see brothers on opposite sides in terms of this idea that here, God saying to Rehoboam by way of Shemaiah the prophet, "Ye have forsaken me, and therefore have I also left you in the hand of Shishak." So in this chapter, it doesn't appear that Rehoboam and Jeroboam are fighting. There's this for sure. It says here in 2 Chronicles 12:15, "Now the acts of Rehoboam, first and last, are they not written in the book of Shemaiah the prophet and of Iddo the seer concerning genealogies? And there were wars between Rehoboam and Jeroboam continually." So if you think about where the kingdom was when David was there, he fights on all sides, achieves basically a total victory, and gives this peaceful and prosperous land to his son Solomon. I talk about this all the time. When we look at the line from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob to Levi to Kohath to Amram to Moses, then Moses, then Joshua, is 700 years. After Joshua is Judges, and then David, and then Solomon. No, I'm skipping Saul. I missed Saul. Saul, David, Solomon. So the idea like this, that whole time is a long time. 700 to 1,000 years. Where were the people, not necessarily the time of Abraham, but where were they in the time of Moses? God's people were in bondage to Pharaoh. There arose a Pharaoh that knew not Joseph, and he put the Hebrews in bondage. How do they get out of bondage? Well, of course, God delivers them out of bondage. Moses leads the people in Exodus out of bondage. The Red Sea parts, the manna from heaven, the cloud of, the fire by night, the cloud by day. God leads them through the desert. The idea being this: once they were in bondage to Pharaoh, and I've mentioned this before, now Solomon is wedding the daughter of Pharaoh, and Pharaoh is going and fighting a war on Solomon's behalf. How far they've come. And unfortunately, What brings them down is their own disobedience, their own sins, their own disunity, their own issues, because they stray from the Lord their God and focus more on the things of this world. Their own issues come back to plague them. And that's a shame. That's a shame because they're God's people and they're good people. And to see them make that journey from when once they were in bondage to now Solomon weds the daughter of Pharaoh and has Pharaoh fighting for him, only to see it go back down is not a good thing. And ultimately, it is because of their disobedience. And then you see that manifest when it says, and there were wars between Rehoboam and Jeroboam continually. That's why I thought of the Targaryens, because ultimately what undid the Targaryen dominance was the Targaryens themselves. They had everything. They just had to not infight with each other. And, that was a shame. So with that, I'll go ahead and end the Bible reading there for today and transition over to what I have achieved since yesterday's Daily Dive video. Since yesterday's Daily Dive video, I worked my software engineering job, and I'll create these 7 Daily Dive videos. And with no further achievements since yesterday's Daily Dive video, I want to go ahead and say thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. Please like, comment, and subscribe, as it greatly helps the channel. Light be with you all. Take care, and thanks again.